Hi, I'm Jason Whitlock. Last night, we saw what separates Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Larry Bird from LeBron James. Last night, in a Game 2 playoff victory the Cavaliers nearly blew to the Indiana Pacers, King James added to his legend, scoring the first 13 points of the contest and 46 overall. In a game the Cavaliers had to have, James was deadly efficient at both ends of the court. He drained 17 of 24 shots, collected 11 defensive rebounds and 2 steals. It was vintage LeBron James. But somehow, at home, against an inferior opponent that played poorly, the Cavaliers could never put Indiana away. Cleveland led by as many as 18 points in the first half, but won by just 3. Why?
We were lucky.
Not quite. It's actually because LeBron relegates his teammates more than he elevates them. And that is the difference between James and the all-time greats, Jordan, Magic, and Bird. That difference, I believe, is driven by the fact that James is an only child and they weren't. I'm no psychologist, but James strikes me as the proverbial kid in the sandbox who plays best when he dictates all the terms of the game. Forced to be the man of the house as a boy, James's instincts demand that he rely on himself. And as he has risen through his profession and ascended to the pinnacle, he's less aware how much he values himself more than his team. James, who chases Jordan's legacy and is often compared to Magic, actually has more in common with Russell Westbrook, a freakish, ball-centric athlete who is difficult to play with. Obviously, James is better than Westbrook, primarily because James is significantly bigger than Westbrook. But their style of play is quite similar. Last night, Cleveland spread and spaced the court with an array of shooters and unleashed James to play one-on-one against a helpless defender. The chosen one was the only one against the Pacers.
Do you need to see more out of Rodney and
I need
Clarkson?
to see more out of a lot of guys. Yeah.
This is habit. We saw it in his first Cleveland stint when James would single-handedly carry a bunch of B players to regular season success. When James decided to play with other stars and took his talents to South Beach, he turned Chris Bosh into a spot-up shooter, snatched the heat from Dwayne Wade, and implemented the ISO and kick offense he prefers. Only the weather changed when he relocated back to Cleveland. James transformed Kevin Love into a spot-up shooter, snatched the Cavs from Kyrie Irving, and bulldozed Coach David Blatt so the Cavs could run ISO and kick. Yes, Cleveland got a title, but the only one's condescending, passive-aggressive leadership chased Kyrie out of Cleveland. James struggles working with a partner in the coach's chair and on the court. That's why he will leave the game with fewer titles than his talent and skill should have produced. No matter how much you bring to the table, in sports or in a relationship, you can't relegate a partner. You have to elevate. That's what makes LeBron different from Jordan, Magic, and Bird. Jordan elevated Pippen. Magic elevated Worthy and Kareem. Bird elevated McHale and Parrish. LeBron James has spent this entire season elevating himself, praising his accomplishments. He's the only one. All right, hello and welcome to Speak for Yourself. Joining me now are Jim Jackson and Chris Broussard.
Two Ohio boys.
Two Ohio boys, two LeBron James guys. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I agree with one thing you said.
One?
I'm no psychologist. I mean, look, here's the thing. Last night, first of all, it wasn't vintage LeBron. Vintage LeBron is 30 points, 9 assists, 10 assists, getting everybody involved. 46 points is an aberration for him. He doesn't typically play that way. Number 2, you compared him to Magic, who had 3 Hall of Fame teammates. Bird, who had 3, overall has 6 Hall of Fame teammates. How many Hall of Famers on the court with LeBron last night? I mean, you comparing that to Rodney Hood and Jordan Clarkson and Kyle Korver and guys like that.
Just what he wants.
No, look. Larry
wants.
Bird had Hall of Fame teammates for 13 seasons. He won 3 rings. Magic Johnson had Hall of Fame teammates for 12 seasons. He won 5 rings but lost 4 championships. LeBron had Hall of Fame teammates for 7 years. 3 with Kyrie, 4 with the big 3 in Miami. He won 3 rings. 3 for 7. That's comparable to Magic's and better than Bird's statistics. I mean, and then you mentioned only child. That's where I disagree, too. Russell Westbrook.
Only child?
No, he's not an only child. Allen Iverson, not an only child. Kobe Bryant, not an only child. I mean, they would be on the poster for not getting along with teammates and playing well with others way before LeBron would. So that's just the beginning. I'm gonna leave something for you.
Ooh, he brought the heat on that one, Chris. He represented for Ohio, and I'm gonna take it a step further.
Please.
So here's my thing. Jordan didn't, I wouldn't say elevate, he challenged his teammates. He challenged them to get better. He got in their face. Scottie Pippen is a rarity in that aspect because Scottie had talent, but it had to be well-rounded. He needed somebody to push him. That's
So
what
Jordan elevated by challenging him.
Yeah, by challenging him. Magic, you can't say Kareem, because Kareem was already one of the best.
I can say Worthy.
But you can't say Kareem.
Worthy was the number one
hold on,
pick
wait.
too, though.
Exactly. You put Kareem's name right in there, so I'm going to go ahead and X that one out.
No, he elevated Kareem at the end of his career. Kareem's a 40-year-old man.
Kareem was the MVP, LeBron's Magic's rookie year.
You said rookie year. They played together 10, 11 years.
First half of Magic's career, Kareem was fine. Then the last half, I'll give you that.
He did that. And here's the thing, too, and I will say this, too. I'm sure when LeBron was growing up, he heard from his mom, yeah, you got to take care of yourself. Nobody's going to do anything for you because she had to go through that process. She had to go through the struggle when she thought she had things in place to take care of her son, and it didn't. So I'm sure he probably grew up with that isolated feeling that I do have to take care of myself. But here's the thing about it. Playing with a guy like LeBron James is like working for Bill Gates or somebody like that or Steve Jobs. It's tough because their demands on what you do and how you perform are going to be tough because they expect excellence. So Dwayne Wade didn't have a problem with it, and him
he did.
No, but here's the thing.
Yeah, he did.
Taking the stardom away from Dwayne Wade was going to be easy. Let me tell you why. His aura, his whole magnitude of who LeBron was, eventually was going to take over anyway. Forget about the play on the court. He was
a little broken down physically.
Exactly. So that was going to take over. Now, is it tough playing with LeBron? Yes, it is. But you know what? A lot of those guys, and you have Richard Jefferson in there who loves LeBron.
I know.
And so it depends on what aspect you're coming from. I'm sure Chris Bosh wasn't happy all the time. I'm sure Kevin Love wasn't happy. But they walking around with that ring on their finger, and they're going to be able to have a chance to go down in history as a team that won a championship.
Listen, if I had LeBron's immense buffet of talents, I don't blame him so much for playing the way that he does. And again, last night's game, I thought, was typical of what LeBron wanted. He had shooters spotted up everywhere, so he could do whatever the hell he wanted to do. He can drive, he can kick, and last night it was about scoring. Again, he did it to Chris Bosh. He did it to Kevin Love. He relegates for a reason, because his buffet of talent is so immense that's why he does that. But I don't think Jordan, Bird, Magic, they didn't have his talent, and so they played the game differently and coexisted better with other star players than LeBron James does. LeBron James makes it, Chris Bosh, Kevin Love, he ran Kyrie Irving out with his style of leadership and play, and we didn't see that from Jordan, Magic, Bird.
Magic ran out Norm Nixon.
Yes, and demanded a championship coach be fired.
You just said Norm.
Norm Nixon was great. Nixon was great.
Nixon was a great.
Compared to Kyrie Irving, what?
In his era, he was the Jim. Hold up. He was one of the quickest, fastest, most penetrating guards back then in the late 70s, early 80s.
Don't Norm to Kyrie Irving.
He was better than any teammate LeBron had on the court with him last night. I'll say that. Yeah. I agree, he wasn't Kyrie Irving. But here's the thing.
He's a little better than George Hill. Right.
Man, stop it. Stop it now. Stop it.
Look, LeBron, Chris Bosh, you talked about, Chris Bosh stepped back. Chris Bosh is going to be a Hall of Famer because of LeBron James. If Chris Bosh had not won those championships,
stayed in Toronto,
stayed in Toronto, made All-Star games, getting beat in the first round,
Chris,
he would not be a Hall of Famer.
Stop it.
He was going to be a Hall of Famer?
Everybody goes to the NBA Hall of Fame and the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame.
I didn't.
He would be a Hall of Famer.
Dominique Wilkins, Alex English.
Let me ask you this. How many titles would Wade and Bosh have won in those 4 years in Miami if LeBron wasn't there?
None.
Okay. He got them 2 titles.
But my point is this, and I ended it with, he's going to win less titles than his talent and skill should have produced. And so, and that is about teammates and about partnership with another great player.
Well, I said,
he had one in
only
Kyrie
had
Irving.
7 years. He's won 3 titles in those 7 years.
Choice. That's
Really?
How?
He left Miami and left those guys.
But he went to another Hall of Fame
He
teammate.
ran Kyrie Irving.
Nah, he didn't run him out of there. That's Kyrie's choice. If he didn't get along, Bird didn't get along with all his teammates.
Bird didn't get along with McHale.
Did he run them
Kareem
all?
didn't even talk to his teammates.
But back in the day, back then you stayed with your teams a lot longer, so it's kind of challenging. It's like a Dan Marino trying to compare his passing yards right now to a Tom Brady. The game was totally different. The game was totally different back then where you ran the football. Right now, back in the early 80s, you pretty much stayed with your team. The free agency wasn't there. So you were able to develop a chemistry even if you really didn't get along. Because there's a lot of stories with Bird and McHale not getting along. But what you did was, forget our personal differences, I'm playing for the team. So Shaq and Kobe. I understand what Kyrie was like, look, man, I want to play point guard. I want to play the point. This is what I want to do.
I don't want to be called a kid. I don't want to be treated like a little kid.
I get it. But it's not for everybody. Every situation is not going to be perfect.
I'll give you
Let me tell you something. Jordan, in his book, The Jordan Rules, he said, don't pass the ball to Bill Cartwright in the fourth quarter.
Right.
You think Bill Cartwright was happy with that?
Cartwright
Not at all.
threatened him.
Exactly.
And we know
Did he say that about
he
Pippen?
beat up Steve Kerr. We know in practice.
You're talking about it.
This
His
is
partner with Scottie Pippen.
This is what
That's what I'm saying. He hasn't built a partnership with a coach or a player.
But Scottie didn't get along with Mike all the time. Scottie did not get along.
Leave.
But who? He didn't have to because Jordan left.
And he was begging. And what I'll give you is this, Jason. LeBron James has such wide-ranging abilities that he does do it all. And he kind of becomes a system unto himself. That's why when he leaves places, they fall apart, because he was the system. Jordan and the guys you mentioned, they could play in the system. That's one of the advantages Jordan had over LeBron, is I think, Mike, because of the years in college, and it was just a different climate coming up at that time, Jordan could play in a system. LeBron becomes the system, and that can make it a little bit harder.
Those two were not asked to do the yeoman's work on everything. Magic averaged 20 points 4 times. Highest is 23. Jordan's career average on assists is 5.3. The highest is 8. But the totality of what you're asking LeBron to do, those guys never had to do.
I think Chris made my point when he said those guys could play in a system. LeBron James can't. It goes back to being my point about an only child.
But what about these non-only children who can't play in a system? Westbrook, Iverson, Kobe.
You compared them to Westbrook.
I did compare him to Westbrook because, again, it's
not
true
only
about
children.
I'm not saying every only child is the same.
just saying.
I'm not saying every only child is the same.
That's just the top of my head. I gave you 3. Like, come on, man.
You know who he reminds? Seriously, when you think of all-time great athletes, he reminds me of Tiger Woods and Lance Armstrong. Only children. There's something unique about being that gifted. He spent all year talking about himself and praising himself. Man, and again, it sounds like I'm just killing the guy.
You are.
I'm not killing the guy.
You are.
For a reason.
I'm not killing the guy.
Killing him softly.
I'm explaining the guy.
Okay.
He's still great, but he just ain't with those 3 guys, in my opinion.
on.
In terms of elevating, no.
He's got as many titles as Bird, and his individuals number dwarf him, and he didn't have the same caliber of
Bird got
teammates.
injured and was playing against far better competition. There's a new boss in town at Buffalo Wild Wings, and he deals in bacon. It's the Bacon Boss Burger, featuring bacon 3 different ways and a blanket of white cheese sauce. And he's joined by other new favorites like the smothered cheesesteak quesadilla, sweet chili shrimp, and Alaska cod classic. All pair perfectly with a Sam 76, a fruity ale with the crisp finish of a lager. Hurry in today and try them all before they're gone at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports, available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly. All right, welcome back. Joining the show now is Hall of Famer and Rams apologist Eric Dickerson. Let's talk some football. 1 week from the NFL draft, it's no secret the Patriots are looking to find a backup quarterback for Tom Brady. A report says the team has expressed interest in former UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen, one of the most polarizing players in the draft. Eric, I think this is a match made in hell. Bill Belichick and Josh Rosen, the ultimate millennial know-it-all with the ultimate old-school head coach. I don't think this would work.
I think it's a perfect match, really, because, like you said, he's a millennial. He likes to ask questions. When you think about the Patriots system, they have a system in place that you have to know. You have to be smart. I think he's a smart young man. I met him about 3 years ago. Nice kid, very respectful, knowledge of the game, very knowledgeable about football. So, and not just about the X's and O's, about the players. He said, I was his favorite player. Not like you say, Wendell Tyler, that kind of stuff. But, I mean, I think it's a perfect fit. I really do.
Honest to goodness, the do-your-job coach, the coach who Trump supporter, and you got this social justice warrior football player in Josh Rosen who wants to be an activist, has all these opinions about things that go well beyond football. He and Bill Belichick can coexist?
You know, when you're young, you say things early that people have the tendency to jump on. You know, they make a big deal out of it. You know, no one talks about this young man wanting to play in the Cactus Bowl of all, but he didn't play because I think he had a concussion. He didn't play. And talking about players that hadn't played in bowl games and why they didn't play. He said, right up front, their situations are different. You know, basically, I don't have to play football to survive. Some of these guys play the positions that they're going to get banged up. So he's not a selfish player. Look, as a young football player, a young athlete, you're going to ask questions. You're going to be curious. I think they made a big deal because he said he wants to win one more ring than Tom Brady. What's wrong with that? If he goes out and says, you know what? I'm the greatest quarterback to ever live. You know, I'm going to do all this. Then he'd sound idiotic. When I came out, did I want to break OJ's record? Yes, I did. Secretly, I said it to me and guys that knew me, but most definitely, you have goals and you should have goals.
Let's move to the drama with the Steelers. As many expected, Le'Veon Bell didn't show up for the team's offseason workout. The likely reason, he ain't too pleased about his contract situation. He wants a long-term deal while the team hit him with a franchise tag for the second straight season. Eric, I put this into the show because Le'Veon Bell reminds me of a former great running back for the Rams and the Colts by the name of Eric Dickerson.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I'm glad.
He always wants money.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't, Whitlock. I was making $150,000.
And you always wanted more.
Of course.
And so I'm assuming you're on Le'Veon Bell's side here in terms of the Steelers are mistreating him. They should give him all the money he wants.
I'm going to say this much here. I'm always for the player. I really am, because I think the player deserves the money. But in this situation, I feel like the Steelers have always been fair to their players. If you're fair, if it's a fair market price, even his agent thought the deal was fair last year, but he didn't take it. Now it becomes on the player. You know, Le'Veon, I think, I like him because I think that he runs behind that offensive line like no one else could. You know, like when I came to the Rams, that fit me. But I have one problem with paying him this money. He gets hurt, and he's been suspended for drugs or whatever it was. When you're talking about having a long-term deal with a franchise player, I have no patience for drugs. I'm sorry. That's the cutting line for me, and I think that's why they have not paid him the money.
That's a good point. I won't crack any more jokes.
Okay.
To a team that could be headed for dysfunction, your Rams, who have made noise this offseason, picking up several players noted for their questionable behavior. Cornerbacks Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, and defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh. This is going to be a lot to handle for the Rams' young coach, Sean McVay. I think it's going to be too much, and I think it's going to be like what we see with Marvin Lewis and the Bengals in terms of they have regular season success, can't get it done in the postseason because the character of the team is questionable. You can't load up your entire team with guys of questionable character. I've seen Marvin Lewis do it, who I think is a great coach. I think Sean McVay has gotten off to a start where he has a chance to be great, but he's taking on too much.
Have any of these guys had any problems off the field?
Aqib Talib, I think, shot himself.
Well, he shot himself. He didn't shoot nobody.
Am I right about that? I think.
I'm not sure. But look, I really believe one thing. When you go to the Rams locker room and you see the players in there, Aaron Donald, Todd Gurley, you know, this is a very close-knit football team. And I believe that this will work. I really believe, because one thing that McVay they want to win right now. And I got to say, the Rams are doing the right move. We're looking at Ndamukong Suh. All right, he's grown. And I've talked to Suh. Really good guy. You know, when you're on the football field, hold up, don't give me that face. When you're on the football field, it gets ugly out there. And I'm the first to say that some of the stuff he's done, he shouldn't have done. Will he do it at the Rams? Will he do it there? No, I don't think that will happen with the Rams. He has another guy over there, Aaron Donald, that controls that defense. Marcus Peters, I know you mad because we got Marcus Peters. I know you're a Chiefs fan. I know you're upset about that.
I'm really not.
You are.
I'm glad, because I was glad when Andy Reid got rid of him, to be honest with you. All right, to a surprising revelation about the Seahawks, who missed the playoffs for the first time since 2011, former Seahawk Michael Bennett, who has since been traded to the Eagles, claimed he would read books during the Seahawks team meetings because he had already heard whatever Coach Pete Carroll was saying. Eric, did you know any guys that were like that in your playing days?
Well, we'd have a tendency to fall asleep.
I got a book I want to read while you talk.
That's a good book. Matter of fact, you ought to read that book. That book will teach you something.
On the Run with Eric Dickerson.
On the Run, that's it. I'll say this much here. I believe that Pete Carroll lost this football team in that Super Bowl 4 years ago when they did not run Marshawn Lynch on the 1-inch yard line. They want to make Russell Wilson the MVP. That football team at that point, they were just like, they dismantled. I mean, and this is on the coaches. It's not on the player. I mean, first of all, a player knows better. Do you think he would do this in Bill Belichick's meeting, in Andy Reid's meeting? No. By the time he closed the book, he'd be suspended or cut.
I think this ties in perfectly with my Rams point that I just made before. When you have too many guys that think they're smarter than everybody else and smarter than the coaches, and they got all these concerns other than football, and they want to be popular over social media, and they want to be everything in addition to being a great football player, this is what you get. And this is why Pete Carroll's getting rid of all these guys, because they wouldn't listen. They were unprofessional. And again, I think the same thing could happen to your Rams that you saw in Seattle.
You think, but you don't know. See, I'll go back to it again. This goes back to that Super Bowl. It really does, because when you get to a Super Bowl game, I never got there, but I know how hard it is to even win 10, 11, 12 football games. And the frustration of getting there and you're this far away from being a Super Bowl winner, and the coach makes the dumbest call in Super Bowl history?
Other than the Malcolm Butler decision made by Bill Belichick.
Hey guys, Jason McIntyre here. Before the show moves along, I wanted to tell you that support for the Speak for Yourself podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. They understand that home plays a big role in your life and family. That's why they created Rocket Mortgage. Rocket Mortgage gives you the confidence you need when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. It's simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. Whether you're looking to buy your first home or your 10th, with Rocket Mortgage you get a transparent online process that gives you the confidence to make an informed decision. It's convenient. Our trusted partners allow you to share your financial information with Rocket Mortgage at the touch of a button. And in addition to getting a real mortgage approval in minutes, you can even adjust the rate and length of your loan in real time to make sure you're getting the right solution for you. Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/speak. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
All right, welcome back. Jim Jackson, Chris Broussard are back. Joining us now is the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. We'll start on a positive note from last night. Jazz rookie Donovan Mitchell was electric, dropping 13 of his 28 points in the fourth, leading Utah to a 102-95 victory over the Thunder, evening the series at 1 apiece. Meanwhile, Mitchell's rival for Rookie of the Year, Ben Simmons, has also been impressive, helping the Sixers win 17 of their last 18 and making Philly one of the favorites to win the East. Our question is, and I'll be first, I would rather have Donovan Mitchell than Ben Simmons to build my team around, and it's really for one simple reason. Ben Simmons can't shoot outside the lane. And Donovan Mitchell's in a league where scoring matters and shooting matters, and Ben Simmons for the year, 0 of 11 from three-point range. I think Ben Simmons is tremendous, but in comparison to this kid and just top Michael Jordan's 55 points in his first 2 games, playoff games, Jordan had 53. I'll take Donovan Mitchell.
Scoring comes down and does it. I mean, to me, and I love Donovan Mitchell, love him to death. But me, because Ben Simmons' upside in regards to what he can do on the court, to get guys involved, his size, his athleticism, the ability to see the court, to change the game. To me, if I'm starting a team, that's what I want. I can go find a 20-point scorer. I can go find that all the way around. But can I find a transformative player that elevates, not regulates, the game for certain people, and someone I can trust? And I love Donovan Mitchell. But if I'm starting a team and I want to build something, hands down, I'm going Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, I love Mitchell too, but Ben Simmons is the closest thing I've ever seen to Magic Johnson. He is the next Magic Johnson. I would take him hands down. Donovan Mitchell is in the mode of a Russell Westbrook, a Dwayne Wade, that type of great individual player. So, yeah, you'd love to have him, but I'd rather have the mold of a Magic Johnson, who's going to get his teammates involved. Those guys I mentioned, that's almost a bygone era. There was that era.
That two guard.
Yeah, exactly. Where the Iversons and those guys were kind of ball-dominant players in the league, winning a lot.
Help me out.
I'm going with Ben Simmons.
Listen, Mitchell was captivating last night, but it's got to be Ben Simmons. I mean, Ben Simmons, no doubt. Whitlock, this guy had 12 triple-doubles this year, 3rd in the league. He's a 21-year-old rookie. And what these guys failed to mention is defensively, Ben Simmons can guard all 5 positions. You're going to see him guard the point guard tonight. He's going to switch on to Whiteside, maybe Josh Richardson. This is a guy who, like you said, makes everybody else better. And the funny thing is, you say the scoring, okay? He can't shoot outside the lane. Everybody knows that. The book is out on him, and he still averaged 16 points a game. Shot 54% from the field.
Couldn't count on it. I'll take all of you on. Listen.
Okay.
And I love Magic Johnson is my favorite player of all time, favorite athlete of all time. Picture hangs in my house. If Magic were playing in this NBA, the three-point shooting, high-scoring NBA, I'm not sure if we would consider him, he was, to me, the best player of that era. But of this era, I think you got to be able to score.
But they can score. See, you said scoring. You didn't say shooting. Magic couldn't really shoot. He had a little set shot, but he could score. When he needed to, when Kareem was out, he'd go for 37, 35.
That will never be Ben
Simmons can score. Simmons can score. I wish he'd shoot more. He shoots 54% from the floor. And everybody knows he's going to shoot within 5 feet. I would like to see he's like Magic. He can get wherever he wants on the court. Remember, the floor is all spread because everybody's around the three-point line. So it's actually easier for him to drive when he wants. So he can score. He just can't.
And how old has Ben? How old is he?
20.
Okay, so he's just now discovering and understanding how good he can be. So he's still going through the process of figuring out what type of player ultimately he can be.
And so Donovan Mitchell's a 44-year-old rookie?
No. I'm talking about, but listen, they're totally 2 different games. Donovan's game when he was younger was built on scoring. It's almost like LeBron. LeBron's game was always built on this. I'm always going to do this. Now I can score too. I always said that it would open up for Ben Simmons once he got into the league. But now once he adds a 15-footer, he doesn't have to be as proficient from behind the three-point line, but he has to be able to knock it down. Let's have this conversation 3 years from now when they're 24.
So right now you agree with me, but
no, I don't. No.
Let's get to the flip side of last night's game. When the game was on the line, the Thunder's big 3 of Westbrook, Carmelo, and Paul George were, how can I put this politely, pathetic. In the fourth quarter, they combined to go 0-14. Now I think they're going to actually lose in the first round of the playoffs to the Utah Jazz, and this would be a disaster if they lose here. I just don't see them winning this series.
I still give them a chance in 7. I still pick OKC. This is a team, too, that's a low assist team, 28th in the league, but in the fourth quarter, they dropped 1 slot to 29th in the league in regards to assists in the quarter. And that's the problem. If you saw this Utah game last night, it was all execution by Utah. at the end of the game. The interior passing, the ball movement. But
Better coaching.
Way better.
Well, here's the thing. I said this about the Boston series, okay? And I said this about this series. The X factor in this series is not a player, it's a coach.
Yeah.
Quinn Snyder is able to get his guys to understand the value of moving the basketball. OKC has never had that kind of guy on the bench, so you see it show up in late game situations. Even when OKC was up, slowly Utah just chipped away. It was one-on-one basketball with OKC. Utah, it was just pass, cut, get shots, get layups, and able to get some stuff done.
You're definitely right. Quinn Snyder has a huge advantage over Billy Donovan, but I'm going with OKC. There were several aberrations last night. One, the big three for OKC shoots 33% combined. That's not going to happen in most of these games in this series. Ricky Rubio hits 5 of 8 three-pointers.
And the big three-pointer in the corner. That's not going to happen.
He's not going to do that. Derek Favors is not giving me 20 and 16 on a regular basis, and they barely won. It was a close. It was 7 points, but it was a close game.
It was on the road.
Look, it was a great win in Utah stuff. It's going to be a tough series, but I think last night Utah got some things from players that it won't get regularly. And OKC's guys.
I'm riding with Whitlock. I mean, you talk about aberrations. Whitlock, tell them how OKC shot 14 for 29 from threes in game 1. I mean, when Alex Sabrinis is coming off the bench and chipping in all these threes, that ain't going to happen every day, especially against the second-best defensive team in the league. Utah at home is just brutal defensively. This is a team that beat the Warriors by 20-plus twice at home this year. I love Utah's defense, as you said, Quinn Snyder. And think about this. When it's crunch time for OKC and you're in the huddle, it's not like an exciting, we've got 3 guys to beat them. It's, okay, Russ, are you going to pass the ball? Carmelo, are you going to be cool getting to the corner? And Paul George is kind of like, am I getting the ball or not? I think in crunch time, Donovan Mitchell's the guy for Utah. And OKC, you just don't know what you're getting.
But that's not the crunch. The crunch is also, too, the way things are designed for Utah to be able to get some shots. With OKC, the design plan doesn't benefit, I think, of Carmelo. It's almost like he came down in transition twice, had to catch and shoot. They didn't need a 3. They could have went to the basket. But you saw Utah, I thought, execute a lot better down the stretch.
I saw that as well, and I thought, like, man, they got an identity crisis going on here late. Russell Westbrook kicked to Carmelo for 2 threes that blew my mind. One, I thought, like, hold on, Russell, go to the hole.
Yep.
I mean, that's your whole game, and you kicking to Carmelo Anthony after what you've seen for 82 games of a regular season?
It's this vintage, one team isn't as talented but plays smart, and one team is wildly talented but doesn't play smart. And so we're going to see which one wins out.
Paul George, 6 of 21 from the field. I told y'all that game 1 was an aberration. All right, welcome back to the show. Jim Jackson and Chris Broussard are here. Let's go back to the NBA, to the Knicks, who are looking for their next head coach after firing Jeff Hornacek. A report says that the team will interview inside the NBA's Kenny Smith for the job. Also in the mix is former Warriors head coach Mark Jackson. Jackson was fired back in 2014 and hasn't been able to land a job since. Some around the league believe he is being blackballed. I'm not 1,000% sure if I buy blackball, but I do think he's definitely worthy of a second chance. I thought he did a really good job in Golden State. Why not give him an opportunity to learn from his mistakes and build on that? But Chris, I know you believe he's certainly being blackballed.
Yeah, I don't think there's a conspiracy. I don't think there was a phone call between 25 owners or whatever saying, look, don't hire Mark Jackson. We're not going to hire him. But one, to your point, how can you explain him not even being mentioned, getting interviews for all these jobs that have been available since he left the game? And we know the NBA is a copycat league. The Warriors, because of their success, Joe Lacob now has them viewed as a model franchise. People want to build like them. Joe Lacob had a comment about Mark Jackson. He did a great job, and I always compliment him in many respects, but you can't have 200 people in the organization not like you. So Mark is a very headstrong, I like him a lot, but he's very headstrong, and I don't know if some people are afraid of that. His religion, he's a preacher. I don't know if some people are afraid of that, but whatever the reason, he has been blackballed, in my opinion. I hope he gets the New York job because, to be honest, I don't know what other job he may be offered.
And I'm going to agree with you because I got a chance to play with Mark when we were in Houston and got to really know him, not as a coach but as a player, and understood the mindset behind and how he played and what he wanted to do. in this league and in sports, owners talk. So when jobs come up, they pick up the phone, just like GMs, and say, okay, what do you think about this? That experience that Mark had there probably runs a lot deeper. That may have been regulated just to the Golden State Warriors at that time. That doesn't mean it manifests itself in another job. It could have been that whole organization at the time. I just understand how this thing works. When I was in Dallas, Don Nelson came in and basically blackballed me and a few other players by saying that these were bad apples. I'm like, well, bro, you never even talked to me. But yet and still, this is what you said to the other GMs and organizations, and because they respected you, they took that to task. And I see that with Mark Jackson because, again, not name being mentioned in a lot of these jobs because he's an excellent communicator. He understands how to play. He's a winner by nature. But yet and still, once we get in a situation where we get a stigma, meaning African-American, that carries along with us because in the playoffs right now, Quinn Snyder didn't have the best reputation.
No, he did not. I covered his college career.
But in Utah, look what he's able to do. And good for him.
Here's what I'll say, that fit matters.
Yes.
And so Mark Jackson to Silicon Valley and Northern California, I think bad fit. And this is something I think that Chris will strike you. Sometimes when you're a spiritual person, it intimidates people. And so let's take, and I don't know if this analogy works perfectly because it really does. Their personalities are a little bit different, but Tony Dungy, a very spiritual person in the Midwest with the Indianapolis Colts, perfect fit. You go to Northern California, that's a whole different animal, a whole different reaction to religious people. And so references do matter. And so with anybody, my references matter. If you work at a fast food chain, your references matter. And so I think that bad fit in Northern California created a situation where Mark Jackson's references aren't the best.
No, I think there's some truth to that. The interesting thing is their best player, or Steph Curry, the face of that franchise, is a spiritual person. You know what I mean?
Right.
They fine with him.
Too, and he
loved Mark.
Right.
He loved Mark. You know, but look, like I do think, like I said, he has been blackballed, and this might be his only shot to get back in that coaching booth.
So I want to put another layer to it, because when you say blackball, people just go to race as the only factor. And I think you tried to broaden the factors, but I want to broaden it even more about what I think is going on in the NBA. And I hear Barkley talking about it, and I hear a lot of former players talking about it. The advent and the popularization of analytics to the game has run out a lot of former players as coaches. And we're talking a lot of black former players as coaches. And so I want to look at this graph at what's going on in the NBA as opposed to the NFL. African-American head coaches, 2010, 2011, 10 NBA coaches, 6 NFL. At one point, 14 in 2012 and 13 NBA coaches. And now the NFL is ahead of the NBA. And so there's a cultural shift going on in the NBA as it relates to coaching, as it relates to front offices, that I think is creating a problem for black coaches.
It is, because if you look at the analytics part of it, you got guys that understand numbers. They don't see a person. They see a number and how these people can gel together. And now they put them in the front office, and they want to get a coach that kind of mirrors what they're thinking. The problem, I say, with analytics is I think you need to have it. They're used, it's a part of it. But analytics can't tell you how me and Chris or me and you are going to get along. The numbers may say one thing, but it can't tell you personality. That's where it feels from a guy who's played the game. And not all ex-players are great coaches or great general managers or whatever it may be. But to your point, I totally agree with that. The analytic part of it, what owners are looking for, kind of took the player and their mindset and their feel of the game out of it.
There are only a handful of the 60-some-odd, that's a rough estimate, analytical guys in the league, front office types. There are only a couple who are African-American. So one, I do think African-Americans need to get more into the analytics to help us get those jobs. But I also do think that that it has become a problem, more so in the front offices. The coaching, we had 8 black coaches before the season began. You had a max of 14, which is basically half the league. I think this will come around. David Fisdale is the hottest name on the coaching market. New York's going to most likely hire an African-American coach. But I think the problem is in the front office. You only have 5 African Americans who are the head of a basketball department in the league. And so you got analytical guys who didn't play in college or some even in high school running teams. And sometimes they can be intimidated by a guy that did play basketball. Because I'm telling you, and you know this, a lot of them can't just look and watch and see who can play. They only can look at the numbers. And so they can get intimidated by a guy who's been in the locker room, who talks about chemistry and all the intangibles that put together a good basketball
But Chris, let's reduce it down to our business as journalists, as former journalists. Analytics have overtaken our industry. And so who is the front office guy talking to in the media? An analytics guy. And so, and again, in terms of who my friends are in journalism, they tend not to be analytics guys. They're more storytellers and into the human emotion, or they're former athletes like yourself. And so when I'm a head coach and my front office guy I report to is an analytics guy, when we go to dinner, are we talking the same language?
Totally different.
Are we
totally different?
Do we like to drink the same things? Do we run with the same crowds? Or can we just sit there, and even when we talk basketball, we probably are talking it a different way.
And even the owners, because most of these owners, made their money in corporate America in some way, shape, or form. They're used to people coming to them making presentations with numbers, with PowerPoint, with this and that. And analytical guys they relate to their presentation versus you sitting down and telling me about your experiences in the locker room and just the feel for the game. And that's an issue too.
Well, you're talking about changing the language then, that we as African-American coaches or players are talking about. Because in order for us to secure these jobs, we have to be on the same page. We have to be able to be in the same room. The conversations they're having, like you said, are a lot different. But now we're behind the 8 ball, so to speak, in regards to catching up. It's like when I leave the NBA and I want to go out into the real world. Say I want to do real estate. Well, I'm going against Johnny, who's been doing it for 20 years already. I'm behind the 8 ball. So the question is, okay, we know what the problem is. What's the solution and how can we catch up? Because there's opportunities out there to be gotten by African-American coaches. We got to figure out how to take advantage of it.
What I would say to Mark Jackson, because I really want him to get a second chance, the issue he may have, he was such a successful basketball player, and he does know the game well. But what Jim is talking about, you're going to have to not be condescending about all that you know because you played the game. You're going to have to tone that down a little bit and not be off-putting. And then you have to expect them on the other side to have respect for what you did in the game and understand that in terms of managing these kids, because that's what I don't think Mark Jackson gets enough credit for. He managed a group of young guys to the point that when Steve Kerr came in and wanted to introduce, they were ready for it. And I know in Mark's mind, he feels like I could have taken them to that next level of giving a chance. I had seasoned and prepared them for this opportunity. So I think there's some things for both sides to do. All right, time for last call. Earlier this week, longtime NFL linebacker and overall scary dude James Harrison announced his retirement. He had hoped to return to the Steelers, the team that cut him last season, but Pittsburgh opted not to sign him. Now Harrison says he has no hard feelings about the team's decision. I think he diminished his legacy in Pittsburgh by running off to New England.
Come on, Jason.
Seriously.
Man, how? The man played 15. He's an undrafted free agent. He went to Cincinnati. That's the real nemesis of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
But they had gotten over that, and then you run off to New England when you think you're going to play New England in the AFC Championship
Have you ever
game.
seen James Harrison work out?
Yeah.
He deserved to play. He wanted to play. That's business. They made a business decision. He made one.
All right, staying in the NFL, the league announced that the Chiefs and the Rams will play in a Monday Night Football game in Mexico City on November 19th. This will mark the third year that the league has scheduled a game in Mexico City. My Chiefs versus your Rams.
Right.
Where we partying at in Mexico?
Muy bien, tú. Ay, 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 papi. We're going to be where the senoritas at. That's what we're going to be. There we go. Hey, I'm too skinny. I'm too skinny. Well, how I get so skinny?
Go to Cabo,
Man, I
then
can't
fly
get
over
that
there.
skinny.
Yeah, look how good I look.
I got my
That's
curl
awesome.
back. Curls for the girl. That's where we're going.